Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Daredevil number 174, cover dated September 1981. And the cover caption makes plain it's Daredevil, Elektra and the Gladiator versus an army of assassins. And I really like the design of this cover by Frank Miller and Klaus Janson, with the silhouettes of the ninja here in the background. It will turn out to be the Hand, the first appearance of the Hand in Marvel Comics. And also the foreground with the blades of their swords featuring. And it's all very designy, including this rendering of the silhouette of the ninjas in the background there with the screen tone, and this designy choice to cut through the screen tone with these open lines that the colorist has colored in green. And there's even some interesting storytelling going on in this particular cover, with Gladiator here holding a wound in his upper arm as well. So very, very nice, thoughtful work from Frank Miller. Let's open this one up to the first page. This particular story opens with a prologue, and it is mostly silent on this first page. So we have a shot of Elektra, a down shot of her looking at this guy cycling through an alleyway. He's being targeted by someone holding a crossbow. She's swinging down. Is she there to rescue the guy or what? We don't know exactly yet, but he is shot through the throat with an arrow, and that's gotta hurt. He's down and dead, and Elektra's not happy. I like the rendering of the raising of her nostrils there. That's really nicely done. That's an expressive face, and I like it. So we get some narration here. Alive, Alphonse de Chanteau was worth a $50,000 bounty. Whoever killed him must now face Elektra. So we haven't seen Elektra for a few issues, but Miller's brought her back now. And it turns out this is not taking place in New York. She went back to Europe. And this opening prologue is set in Paris, as it turns out. So she follows this ninja. She recognizes her quarry as a ninja, and her blood runs cold. A closer look confirms her suspicion he's one of the Hand. The Hand, the same order of master assassins that taught her the many ways of murder. Now look at what Miller's doing here. We have an upshot of Elektra running across the rooftops here, and then we get a down shot of her looking at the ninja as he makes his way down a stairwell, a staircase. And just the great combination of moving the camera around, keeping the storytelling interesting in that regard, but also spotting blacks, rendering silhouettes and shadows and light here. And so the ninja with the crossbow makes his way into this entrance, which is down at the bottom of the staircase. There's some water there as well. And we go back to the narration concerning Elektra's thinking. But what are they doing here in Paris, thousands of miles from their territory? She should not wonder. She should turn and run. So really the Hand being developed here as a dangerous antagonist. She should flee the city and never return, yet she follows and listens. That's a really great panel here. Great use of screen tone, lighting, spotting of blacks. We're looking in through this barred window at these two ninja, and this guy is handing something to this other guy. De Chanteau is dead, he says. You've done well, Jenin, which is the Japanese word for ninja. Receive now the image of our latest prey. He is an American, a lawyer. Well, we're reading a Daredevil comic, so who's that going to be? Necessarily, it's Matt Murdock. This is another great panel here. Great use of screen tone. It looks like Miller might have been looking at some photo reference for the expression on Elektra's face here. It's really well done. I like the storytelling across these three panels. We've got a moment to moment as the photo of Matt Murdock goes on fire, and then a moment to action sequence where the ninja drops the burnt photo to the ground, and then we get a top-down shot of Elektra. We've got the light coming out of the barred window, casting a reflection on the dank green pool of water outside this structure as she stands in the shadow there. And she's thinking about how she hates Murdock, how they're enemies now. And she will not imperil her own life to save his. She will not. And then this is great storytelling as well. We see the jet plane flying almost out of her eye, and yet she finds herself on the next flight to New York. And this is a very interesting panel here, where we have, it's a long vertical panel, and there's interesting use of colors here. It seems to be a rendering of a moon maybe and some clouds. But we've got deep purples, magenta, turquoise, blue. Very, very interesting, and all will be revealed in terms of what's going on with the coloring on the next page when we get to the credits. So 3-page prologue, really, really effective, and not the kind of thing you would see in most comics back in 1981. So Frank Miller innovating at this point in his career. Now let's get past these advertisements and get to the title of the story and the credits. So the title is The Assassination of Matt Murdock. Credits: Miller is credited for story and art, Janson finished art. So what that means is that Miller's doing breakdowns and Janson is finishing the drawing with his inks. And then this is really interesting. Glynis Wine and Janson credited for the colors. So I'm going to point out what Janson is doing in terms of the color credits in this issue. And I'll be able to do it on the very next page over here. Joe Rosen on letters, and there you go. So we start in Manhattan in court. Matt Murdock has been defending Melvin Potter, aka the Gladiator, in recent issues. He's been looking for delays, delays in the proceedings, so that he can secure certain witnesses who'll prove his client's innocence, but the prosecutor isn't having that. The judge isn't having it either. He says court will convene at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. These news reporters are wondering what's up with Murdock, and one of them says that he's on the outs with his partner, Foggy Nelson. We've seen that they've had a very fractious, tense relationship in recent issues, and Matt doesn't know quite why that is. We'll get some more we'll get a revelation as to why that is in this particular issue when we continue. And Murdock basically consoles Melvin here, saying that trust him, Murdock is going to win the case. So then we move on to a classic of Miller's layouts, the 5 horizontal panels on the page. And we're going to see this layout throughout the comic with some variations, and it's always interesting to see and think about why and when and how Miller varies this basic 5-panel layout. So Daredevil swinging across Manhattan. Here is one of these panels where Janson is doing the colors. And so whenever there is drawing, so to speak, in the coloring, it is Janson's hand that is at work here. So this is a really cool rendition of Times Square, as Daredevil bounces off the lamppost, and then we get to see him running across Broadway here with all the different cinemas and the movies of the time, like Thief with James Caan, Postman Always Rings Twice there. Really interesting snapshot of the particular age and time. So Daredevil makes his way to his own brownstone. He comes down the skylight. Always interesting in Miller's rendition of Daredevil's brownstone, the statues and sculptures, and in particular the motif of the sculptured faces that he hangs on his walls, because of course a blind man wouldn't have paintings on his walls, so he's got these sculptures, and it's really cool the way that Miller has thought about that, but also the kind of monstrous, grotesque faces as well add something interesting to the decoration of Daredevil's brownstone apartment house. Now here's another one of these panels where Janson is doing the coloring. So we've got a rendition of a silhouette, Murdock's own silhouette, but also here the silhouette of Elektra, but he's unaware that she is around. So we get to see the inside of his apartment, and he is tuning in to some heartbeats. I'm not alone, he thinks to himself. My super sensitive hearing detects 4 distinct heartbeats in this room. No breathing, just the heartbeats. And now my radar is picking up silhouettes to match, and we can see them there in the background rendered by Janson in the colouring, along with the heartbeats rendered by Janson in the colouring as well. And here they are, the hand. And they speak now aloud, and they know that he's aware of them, but they think he's blind. And one of them says, it doesn't matter, he's a dead man. And note we have the continuation of the 5-panel horizontal layouts, but now we get what Miller really enjoys doing with that particular layout, and it's this action sequence here. So this is really well done. And of course there's no dialogue, because Matt Murdock is just attacking and defending himself against these ninja foes. Really, really great work by Miller, Janson, and Glynn on the colours on that particular page. And I love the palette. I'll just speak about the palette now in respect of this 2-page spread. Great colour palette at this time. The only other place you would see a colour palette like this would be, naturally enough, Uncanny X-Men and Glynn Swine's work on that. But there's something distinctive about the color palette developed here on Daredevil in the early 80s, complementing Miller's work, and in my view very, very influential on another great talented colorist who would come to the fore at the end of the 80s, Gregory Wright, otherwise known as Greg Wright. Definitely influenced by Glynn Swine's work in X-Men, but in particular on Daredevil, in my opinion. This is a great panel here where we have the ninja with the sword in the foreground, his hand and sword in the foreground, as Daredevil questions the member of the hand here in the background. And then we learn something very distinctive about the hand, that when they're defeated, they dissolve. And this is where Miller varies that 5-panel horizontal layout. So we have it here in the second tier of panels. And so it's an interesting variation of a pattern that we had become used to in the previous 3 pages. And then all the ninjas dissolve, and Murdock thinks to himself, it's a foul smell. But what do they smell of? That would be interesting to know that. We don't get a description of the smell. And then it turns out there was a 5th ninja hiding in another room, a guy with a crossbow, and he was there waiting for Matt should the other ninja fail, and he's been taken out by somebody. And there we can see the sword in his back and the empty costume and the tendrils of smoke emerging from that costume on the floor. So Murdock, naturally enough, thinks to himself, what's going on here? Who put a contract out on me, and who came to my aid? Who? So he's baffled. And you know, just thinking about this now, whatever the smell is of the dissolved ninja is obviously enough to cover up whatever smell, distinctive smell, Elektra might have. Because I was wondering that, how come he doesn't smell Elektra? But that's got to be the answer why he doesn't smell her, because of that foul stench of the dissolved ninjas. So now we move on to a different layout here. We've got this long vertical panel here with Elektra watching from the rooftop across the street, Murdock through the window, and the tendrils of smoke emerging. That's great storytelling, continuity and storytelling as well. And then we switch, we've got an establishing shot of the Kingpin's new Manhattan headquarters, the skyscraper that houses his penthouse office. And we have a bit of dialogue here between his new chief assistant, let's call him. His name is Flint, and he's questioning Kingpin about Daredevil and why Kingpin hasn't done anything directly to thwart Daredevil. So Kingpin explains, and this is again all part of Miller's distinctive characterization of Kingpin, very different from the era of when he was like a third-rate Spider-Man villain. He's now a clever strategist. So he explains here to his underling, Daredevil has demonstrated an interest in a certain lawyer and his client, Flint, he's referring to Gladiator. Through a surrogate, so he's smart, I've commissioned the ninja to slay them both. They will inevitably draw Daredevil into combat against the ninja. That is the secret to power, Flint, to pit your enemies one against the other, remaining all the while untouched. So Kingpin, very much a clever dick, eh? And let's continue with the story, get past these advertisements. Here we go. More interesting layouts. Again, just look at the 2 pages here and the mirrored layouts. We've got these inset panels, top and bottom of each page, and in the middle we've got these tiers of 5 panels. So there is a story within a story here, or there's a twin perspective going on, and it is presented in the very layouts on the page. That is clever storytelling from Miller, a very thoughtful young creator at this point. So we have the ninja, they're on Matt Murdock's trail, and then we have this inset little story with Foggy Nelson, who's gone to pot recently, and he's emptying out his desk, feeling very sorry for himself. We, the readers, have no clue as to what's up with Foggy, why his marriage is falling apart, why he is on the outs with Matt, and Matt himself is also baffled by it. And finally, Foggy says he's going to tell him. And meanwhile, outside the office, the lower east side storefront offices of Nelson and Murdock, we have Elektra with her sai about to tackle the hand ninja. So here she leaps into action, and then we get this emotional climax here where Foggy explains what's gone wrong. He's responsible for the funding of their free legal aid service, and they've lost their government grant, and he hasn't been able to find a sponsor for them. And he says here with tears in his eyes, "It was up to me to keep the dream of ours alive, and I blew it. I'm a failure, a stupid roly-poly teddy bear. I've let you carry me ever since college, and now I've lost the storefront." And he breaks down, and Matt basically puts his hand on his shoulder and comforts him, these 2 old college friends. "Do you really believe that, Foggy?" he asks him. "You should have seen me in court today. The Potter case is going to pieces without you. You're more than a partner to me, more than a friend. I need you." And I love the way that Miller just lets this reconciliation between the 2 friends occur without dialogue. That is really, really well done. And also even the detail of the chair that has fallen on the ground. Like, Foggy's obviously gotten up quickly to embrace Matt, and the chair has fallen on the ground. That's fantastic storytelling. That's really thoughtful stuff. And meanwhile, outside with this special layout, Elektra is going to town against the hand. Fantastic story. And he keeps that page layout for a 3rd page as well. And meanwhile, what happens is one of the hand gets this grenade, this gas grenade off, goes in through the storefront window, explodes, and Matt's injured, and Elektra's shocked. That's a great panel over there as well. Great colouring on this too. And just the great, even the detail of this fine hatching on her cheekbone is really, really well done by Klaus Janson. And I also was thinking about, I like the design detail of her earring. It just adds something to what would otherwise just be the full black of her hair. Adds a little just designy detail to the character and is distinctive of her. Nice work. And then we switch to a hospital, and I like in the narration how Miller focuses on the other senses of Murdock as he comes to. For a time he floats in a void that is as dark and as silent as death. Then he feels starched cotton fibre rustle lightly against his legs. He smells the sharp ammonia-laden antiseptic of the hospital, oddly mixed with a delicate perfume. He hears a voice, soft and melodic, and it's the voice of Heather Glenn, his girlfriend, who also knows his identity as Daredevil, and who's shocked when he gets up, hearing a radio report about Gladiator Melvin Potter being moved to another facility. He trips over a trolley in the room, and Heather's shocked. "What's wrong with you? You never fall down your radar." She knows about his radar sense, and Matt discovers that his radar sense is gone. So that's a shocking development, and that's going to handicap him now in terms of his alter ego life as Daredevil. And then we pick up with Melvin Potter, who's been moved to that other facility, and Elektra arrives, ensures that the truck crashes, releases Melvin from the back, gives him his gladiator armor, and tells him the sooner you're wearing it, the greater your chances of surviving. So she has decided, since she knows that Matt is out of it with the explosion, to look after his client, Melvin Potter. And she's doing it for free. So clearly Elektra has remaining feelings for her former college boyfriend. Here we are, we're returning to the horizontal panels, and that is an indication with Miller that we're into an action sequence. But I like the way that he varies the page here, with Melvin hesitating about getting into the gladiator costume. Melvin is a kind of schizophrenic who believes when he's wearing that costume that he's that he's a gladiator from ancient Rome. So it's not at all good for his mental health that he's being forced back into that costume. So they seem to be in an area with a warehouse here. We've got these wooden crates. These are another great design element of Miller's from this particular era. You know, if you want to include some kind of interesting looking but relatively easy to draw background wooden crate, you can't go wrong with it. So here they are. They're stalked by the Hand, and it looks like they're surrounded. And now we're into the scene that's clearly the inspiration for our cover. And they're ready to fight, or so it appears. Let's turn the page. So again, we've got that horizontal panel layout, but it's varied here in the first couple of panels where we see Daredevil. He's arrived on the scene too, but his radar sense has not returned. So he knows he's handicapped and in trouble going into this fight. So Elektra is shocked. Melvin isn't fighting back. He's just defending himself. They need to do more than defend themselves. They've got to fight back and take out the ninja. And Melvin's distraught. He cries out he's lost it as he's attacked by the ninja. The crates here fall. Again, you can see that that's just such an interesting little design element. Here they are on this page. Miller's varying the panel layouts with vertical panels now, as we get a top-down shot of Daredevil leaping off the crates and launching into an attack against the ninja. And you know what else is interesting too is just this use of the blades of the katana swords as well as another design element. Here they are at the bottom of this panel, over here too. You know, it's something simple, but it works. So here they are over here as well. It's simple, but it works really well, giving a sense of depth and perspective to the drawings. So Daredevil doing his best against the Hand, despite having no radar sense, but one of them gets the drop on him here. He thinks to himself, I'm doing it, I'm holding my own, but he's about to have his head chopped off, except he hears behind me a heartbeat. No, it's gone, must have imagined it. So and here we have, this is really well done, where Elektra grabs the guy by the head and sticks her sai right in his back. That's him out of it. And she's chasing after a bunch of them here as they're retreating. Daredevil thinks to himself, they're leaving. I did it without my radar alone. He still hasn't realized that Elektra's present. Would if he did have his radar sense, but he's unaware of her now. And then he deals with Melvin, who has been injured in his arm, but he says, just cut up some, armor blocked most of it. And he says to Daredevil, it's funny, Daredevil, I've tried to kill you lots of times, but now I couldn't even fight. I'd be cold meat if it wasn't for you and that lady. And now Daredevil realizes lady. And then I love the lighting on his face as well. The rim lighting here on this side. Technically this is double lit from this side and from this side. And it's really effective, also combined with the coloring as well. So now he realizes, or he thinks, no, it couldn't have been her. But, you know, the evidence is pointing to the fact that Elektra's back. And then we get a 2-page conclusion. This is more or less a kind of epilogue. Later, so somewhere else in Manhattan, The 3 surviving ninja report to their master that Elektra has survived. She and the one called Daredevil dispatched our force. Only we 3 survived. So this guy says, survived, yes, but you failed. You should have died with your brothers. So he's their Jonan, their master. But Jonan, we thought if we told you of Elektra, you're not paid to think, only to kill or be killed. So the Hand are mercenaries. That's why they do what they do. And look at this guy as he casually eats his noodles. And that's another interesting aspect of Miller's storytelling here. You could just have this guy angry with them, but there's storytelling going on. He's sitting nonchalantly on this barrel or whatever it is and eating noodles as this huge ninja emerges with the massive samurai blade over his back and faces off against these 3 as they draw their swords. Silence, brothers, we must defend ourselves. Joe Rosen's lettering here, the laughter of the Jonan. Did you say defend yourselves? So the massive ninja draws his blade. Turn to the last page, as it turns out. We just get a sound effect here. Shook. And they have time enough to speak. Remarkable, 3 of us with but a single stroke. And I like this device where Miller has cut the horizontal panel, broken it, so as to give the storytelling moment of the blood dripping off the end of the blade. So whoever this guy is, we'll learn his name in subsequent issues. He has tackled and taken out 3 of the hands with but one swing of his blade, which he then resheathes, and the Jonan gives him an image of the woman Elektra, and so that's his next target as her photograph burns. Such a well-told issue. I love the way that the story is bookended with Matt Murdock being a target and ending now with Elektra being a target. She went against her head in going to save Murdock in Manhattan instead of saving her own skin and running far away from the Hand, and now she too is a target. Next issue, Gauntlet. Amazing work from 40 years ago now, 1981, a young Frank Miller. Stunning stuff, and a great synergy of the whole creative team. Miller, Janson and Glynis Wine and Joe Rosen working together, doing some of the best work of their lives. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Daredevil number 174. If you did, please like the video on YouTube, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.